So welcome everybody. This is Starting Out Bright, and in case we haven't met, I'd like to introduce myself very quickly. My name is Noreen Savage, and I get asked all the time, what these Zooms are about, how they got started, and just very briefly to tell you my story. 2 years ago in May, my friend Lori posted on Facebook that she had lost 57 pounds with a program called Bright Line Eating. And if anybody wanted information, they could just message her. Well, my little hot fingers flew over to the message center as fast as I could to ask Lori what the scoop was. And she proceeded to tell me that in Bright Line Eating, there are 4 bright lines that you don't cross. No flour, no sugar, 3 meals a day, and weighted measured portions. And to all of that, I thought, absolutely no way could I do that. But I got together with Lori and she explained the program more. But then I let some time pass, a couple months, because I had to really become willing. And what made me willing was pain. I had pain in my feet, my back, especially my knee. And there were many times I went to bed when I seriously wondered if I would wake up in the morning. And so that gave me the willingness to try something so extreme as Bright Line Eating. Well, before I got started, Lori told me 2 more things. She said, get the book. There is a book, Bright Line Eating by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson. And she also told me to get into the We Eat Bright with Lines group. At that time, I don't even think the official Bright Line Eating group was available on Facebook. But I got into the We Eat Bright with Lines, and I was just stunned to see people, first of all, being so helpful with each other, but, showing their weight loss, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 pounds or more. And for me, sitting at 270 pounds, looking at wanting to lose half my body weight, this gave me hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year, I get choked up thinking about it. If I lasted 1 year, I would do what Lori did. I would post on Facebook and I would help anybody I could. Well, just before that year was up, I'm a Christian and I felt God put on my spirit, Noreen, you can do more than that. You can do more than that. And the thought came into my mind about having Zooms. It was times of COVID and people were connecting that way. And I thought, if only I could have these people who were so generous to me, leading the way to help those who are so desperate in need of hope, that would be just a wonderful thing. And that's how the Zooms came. And this is the 43rd Zoom this year. So I am so grateful for every single person who's been willing to come up and share their story. And tonight, you are in for a treat. I want you to meet Pete Furlong. And Pete, thank you so much for being here tonight. And we met through an acquaintance. And, I told a little bit of my story. And one thing I like to do to get started is to take you back as far back as you want to go, but how you come to Bright Line Eating. As we saw in this little slideshow, the one that I finally got working at the very end, you have some amazing photographs of where you were and where you are now. So what brought you to Bright Line Eating? Just welcome too.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming and listening, everyone, too. This has been a new amazing thing in my life for the past 5 years almost, and I didn't know that this is something that I had to look forward to in my life. So to be able to share it with anyone else it's a gift in 100 different ways. So not to mention I'm a little afraid of it. So it's always good for me to do that kind of stuff. But I found it through a friend, actually through this church I go to. I was telling you, Noreen, I go to a kind of a small, what I call a hippie church in Albany, and a lot of well, I don't know. I mean, I love it. It's become my home. And so there's a young woman who goes there, who we just connected with because she did some weight loss stuff, and we talked a little bit. And she seemed really like, I don't know. So I really appreciated her energy. But then she told me at one point about this bright line eating thing, and she knew I was in recovery, and said, the woman who does it is in recovery too. And I wasn't honestly, that wasn't necessarily like a selling point for me. There's lots of recovering people doing a whole lot of recovery things, and and she said a few weeks later sent me the food freedom videos, and I mean, I at this point had been up and down, not really great extremes, but up and down 40 pounds or so for a while, if even that much, because it was really hard for me to lose like 20 pounds, if anything beyond that. It was like maybe once every 5 years I would get down to, say, 40 pounds below what I was, which was still a bit uncomfortably high for me.
Mhm.
But so she told me about it. She sent me the food freedom videos. I was like, oh, come on. But I was at this job where I was just doing sort of repetitive work, and I listened to it. I didn't actually watch, I just listened to it while I did this work. And with every sentence she spoke, I was like more in. I was like, this feels real. This feels different. I feel understood. I feel like she's talking about some of the gaps in what my process had been, particularly, understanding flour and sugar, particularly talking about the willpower gap, to use that word again.
Mhm.
I'd had a nutritionist who was really helpful, but the most she would do was, when I was talking about, well, what about when I want to give in? She'd just basically sort of say, don't. I mean, I think she said more than that, but like, you have to not do that. And that just never worked for me. That wasn't something that worked for me. And I didn't understand why. I thought it was probably just because other people could do it and I couldn't. And I'd pretty much given up. I was pretty much at the place where I'm like, I guess I'm just going to keep getting, I mean, I don't like using the word, but fatter for the rest of my life.
Well,
I have a,
and you said that you were doing some recovery work from a different situation, and I'm just wondering, were the two tracking together, or what? Did you feel like your food issues were coming up because of the other of being in recovery?
yeah. If I could just say something about the word fat, I don't like using that word. That's what I said to myself. I don't use that word as a derogatory word. I don't use that word generally in general. I just want to make that really clear. That was just the way I was talking to myself. I was being really harsh and unkind to myself. I realize now, but I didn't think I had a chance. Yeah, I mean, I've been in recovery for a long time now, and I got sober in 2001 from drugs and alcohol because I needed to. And I worked on a lot of different things in my recovery, my relationship with all parts of life that you have to kind of learn to cope with as an adult. I mean, I could go through the list, but I mean, money, work, sex, relationships, organization, food was one of them. I mean, just all the stuff that is adulting behaviors that can also have a compulsive aspect were just parts of what I had to deal with. And I had no idea, and so I realized I had a lot of different compulsive ways of taking care of,
Well, I guess one question, if you don't mind,
please.
I'm hearing some things about like being the self-critical, kind of being
Mm-hmm.
hard on yourself through this weight part. But did you kind of have a sense of a little bit of encouragement, because 2001 is a long time ago? And so if you felt some success in that area of your life, did you now feel at least some strength from that? And then, or did you just feel, oh, correct, now it's all the food? And you're saying there are other compulsive behaviors going on too, but now you're really getting into the food. And that is, the thing with food, you can be like, I can procrastinate. The office can be just horrific, all these kinds of things. But people don't generally walk into my office like at home, not on a daily basis. But
Right.
as soon as I leave this house, they see me in all my glory, whether it's this weight, 70 pounds ago, whatever. And that's the one thing about food, is you're carrying it right there. And so, if you're saying something derogatory to yourself, It's because you're also thinking that as you prepare to go outside or anything, right?
Yes.
It's so easy. But yeah, so you're doing the recovery in that. You've got this compulsive stuff going on, and now you're hearing Susan in the Freedom videos. But at that time, what was this? 2000, how long ago was this?
16.
2016. The book wasn't even out yet,
Right.
right?
Right.
So what did you do? I mean, you just had the
Yeah.
food freedom?
So there was something about the way she presented, the way she talked about it that just struck me as real, that struck me as someone who knows, somebody who has put together pieces I'd never heard put together, but it was also pieces of other things I'd heard. So it like tracked with other things I'd heard, but it just had some missing pieces. It had the science of what processed food is and how that affects our systems.
Right.
Combined with her experience of how what she went through, she talked about a guy who was really really overweight, and he just started, and she was like, why go buy a food scale tonight? And she talked, very, I think, quickly, but about how he just started doing what she suggested, and it certainly perked my ears up in a way I hadn't experienced around food in a while. You'd asked me before if my recovery gave me some hope. I mean, I believed people could change. There was definitely this really, internalized thing that I've seen people get better. I'd also seen people lose weight in other 12-step programs. The limited experience I had in them was that I didn't feel a home there. I think I might more now, to be honest with you, but I wasn't ready or whatever it was. And I know they're different in different areas too. So it can depend where you go. I even know 12-step meetings themselves are very different depending which one you go to. So I had seen some change happen, but I wasn't sure it was possible for me. It wasn't this like statistically really high number where I saw a bunch of people go and everybody, stabilized. Yeah, I saw a few people, and then one friend kind of went back up, and I was like, I don't know. So that of course was a good excuse too, to not believe in it. But I think there are just some things that, I mean, I'm not here to sell anybody on Susan, but for me, I really had, she connected some dots for me and talked about things that really spoke to my experience and made a lot of sense to me.
Well, I listened to the food freedom video too, and videos. In fact, if somebody's new tonight, if you go back in this recording, and thank you for letting me record this, Pete. If you go back and see this again, there will be in the slideshow, there's a link to the food freedom video. It's on the same slide as the book, Bright Line Eating. So that is a link that you can get into the food freedom videos. But even, one thing that's been really helpful, and I know that, we talked the other day and you said that you had done the vlogs too, that she was putting the vlogs out.
Right.
And yeah. I haven't watched a lot of them, but some of those have been extremely powerful to me.
So when I first heard about Bright Line Eating, they had boot camps every couple of months, I think once a quarter. And I actually couldn't afford to get into it right away. My friend was able to give me a discount, and I didn't have the money on the side. I didn't feel comfortable asking anybody. I mean, for all I knew, it was another diet. I mean, I did believe in it, but I didn't have enough confidence to be like, look, I really need this thing. But I did actually, but I kept watching the vlogs, and each vlog I watched, I'm like, this feels right. And I've learned along the way through people telling me this, like, if you have a strong feeling that something is good, those are the things to pay attention to. And that honestly has never steered me wrong. In fact, it's always better. I mean, I don't know about always, but most of the time when I actually listen to that, it's like mind-blowingly better than the good I thought it was. And this was one of those that I just had a really strong feeling about. But I kept listening to the vlogs because I wasn't sure. Maybe I just wanted to believe it, and so I kept watching. And she talked. There was one vlog about, I think, like maybe August of 2016, where she addresses a food addict, someone who's actively eating, addictively. And just some of the things she said, like, sometimes you have to ride it out till you get the next. I don't know if this is when she introduced the double Dutch thing. She talks about
Oh,
something where
yes.
you have to get into, sometimes you have to wait for the
Yes.
right time to jump into the ropes. So
Right.
you're ready to jump in the right timing.
Right.
And so she talked, and that just made sense to me. It's like it wasn't this hard truth of you got to do it now. It was what are you doing?
Right.
Of course you can't. Of course you can't binge. That's not going to make you lose. She wasn't doing any of that. She was saying, I understand. I
Right.
understand what I've had to do. Unfortunately, is wait till I have the next bout of willingness, and that has been true for me.
Exactly. It's spot on, and I think I think it really can only be spoken by someone who's been there. It's like nobody can do it for you. Nobody, there's this wording that goes, this is not for people who need it, it's for people who want it. But I think that the willingness piece, for me, I wanted it, but I wasn't willing yet because in my mind it was so extreme. Pain made me willing to really start thinking. But that doesn't mean I started day one with everything. I actually practiced for a while, just trying to give up wheat and sugar for 3 weeks. Just those two things, not even like corn or all that, just wheat and sugar. That's how I practiced going into it. I mean, what did you do?
That first summer, I listened to a good amount of videos, and she talked about the plan. After the food freedom video, she basically goes through the bulk of the plan. She didn't give out a food plan, but she talked about the 10 basic bright line theory. And so one of the things I started with was doing, I tried to align more to 3 meals a day. I didn't do it perfectly, but I was like, I'm going to try to shift to doing 3 meals a day, and just see what that's like. So that was one adjustment I started to make then, because it made sense to me that you were making 1,000 or whatever, however many, 100 food related decisions, and most of them are between meals. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So and I was like, oh, that's definitely true for me. I'm sure I've put on a lot of weight, but as when I'm at work and the breakfast comes out and it's all flour based breakfast, and
Right.
and then birthdays and it's flour and sugar based desserts and all this stuff that's just like when I actually went to work for New York State for a year, one of the first things they said was, we have fun, we eat. And I was like, right, that's what people do at work. That's like, I mean, and it's not 100% true, but I'd
It's
seen it
just
in
a
every single one of my
normal,
jobs.
it's a normal hospitality type thing. It's the donuts in the break room. It's all of that. It's just become
Right.
a part of all around the world, I think, of hospitality. Food is love, and food is
Yeah.
friendship. And we put things around food of things to do. But even like some of the science really spoke to me. And like you're saying, I heard different things, but then when it was all put together, I literally shut the book and said, I'm going to get thin. After I read, and I had the vantage point of having the book to read, but after I read the science, I shut it and knew like this is it. And there was one piece, and I know we talked about this too, the whole block of ice thing, that whole visual of
Yeah.
talking about what whole grain, for example, whole grain, if you were eating brown rice versus rice flour,
Right.
and having like a block of ice sitting on your driveway melting, it's not going to happen in 2 minutes. And I've actually seen a block of ice do that because my son-in-law has carved ice. So like after a wedding reception, seeing a beautiful swan just slowly melting. Well, if you chip that away and just have ice shattered all over the driveway, it's going to be gone in a hot second. But that's how that is hitting our cells. And like even what did she say? The flour and sugar. Sugar goes into glucose and fructose, I think. And then flour just goes into glucose, and glucose hits all of the cells. Like, so it's just like so damaging and addictive to everything. So yeah, the science was crazy. So you then kind of just set up your own 3 meals a day. Did you finally get into boot camp?
Don't get me wrong, it was loosely.
Well, yeah, I know. Just like my wheat and
I
sugar, that was loose
I was
too.
not quite ready. But yeah, but it made sense to me to try to do that more because I also knew like if I do this and I have not, I was trying to prepare at least mentally for it a little bit. But so I did a little bit.
So when did you finally get into the plan? And was it a straight shot down?
October of 2015. Oh, wait, 2016. I did I got in I actually set money aside, which was at the time like sort of epic. And because I wasn't making much money and I wasn't great at spending my money well or saving. And but I put it aside like enough to be able to do the boot camp. And I think my friend told me about what it would be with a discount. I'm like, okay, well I can probably do that in for the next time around. And I just kept my eyes open. I think I would have done it that July if I could have, but I did, it was like, it was that whole like wah, 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 when I heard about what the money was and what the amount was, and I was actually pretty angry about that. I was like, well, of course it's completely unaffordable, but I expected it to be like $3,000. I was like, this sounds way too good. She's selling me something. I'm gonna like be all in, and it's gonna be like completely unachievable. I was happy that it wasn't that much, but it still was beyond my means.
Right. And for somebody new tonight, I know that there are
Yes.
scholarship programs, the
Yes.
scholarship program that Susan has talked about. So
Yep.
definitely don't let
It's
anything.
really affordable now if you want it. Like, I mean, there are ways that to make it work. Yeah, they've realized that issue and tried to make it accessible to anyone interested.
So then you were in the boot camp, and I hear that you get into like a boot group or something, because I've not done the boot camp. So you're in like a house.
So yeah, so I went into a Facebook house, which is just a specific group for bright line eating that has like VIP posters, people with experience, and then it has house heads. I forget what they call it right now, but house leaders who are the main sort of guides within the house. And I remember the first time I posted and people were like super supportive, and I was just like, oh, that feels really good. This is a different experience. I wasn't quite sure what it would be like if I actually shared something real about how I felt, a struggle, a bad day, or even something good. Like, I don't know. I just expected it maybe to be dismissed or something. I'm not quite sure, but I was really happily surprised with how it was received. That helped me have, the willingness to share a little bit more. That boot camp, I started right away, and I did start seeing, I mean, I don't remember if it was like the first day or not, but pretty quickly I jumped in.
And you started seeing results.
To doing following the food plan.
So what did you use all the tools that are suggested, like meditation and food journaling and all of that? Or what did you find to be the most beneficial for you?
Well, first thing I want to say is it was really overwhelming at first. There was a lot of information. They've actually gotten better at it. I've done boot camps since then in a couple different capacities, but but they've improved. At the time, they sort of like threw all the information of like we're starting, so that was a bit overwhelming at first. I already did some prayer and meditation. I found that effective in my life and helpful and like heart changing, and I'd experienced the benefits of that, so that wasn't too hard to get back into a habit with. And then I started listening to the modules, I never know how much time to spend on all the different things that happened to me, but one of the first things she said was, I invite you to be unstoppable no matter what happens. I don't know how it's going to go for you. We have this subset that just kind of start and hit the ground running and never look back. And I was like, oh, I hope that's me. I hope that's me. Which, by the way, it absolutely wasn't. I definitely have had my struggles.
We'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
no, please.
You get the strength from the struggle by going through that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So and that allowed, I feel like that allowed me, to not be so deflated when I wasn't totally 100% on board, when I had struggles, when because I think I was mentally ready, but I don't know if I was quite emotionally ready when I first started. There was aspects of it that were just going to take a little time for me to be willing to do, or me to get used to, or me to keep doing, or learn how to do in the way that worked for me. Because there are some aspects, she was just talking about this in one of the vlogs, there are aspects of, the vlog she just put out about reverse engineering.
Yes.
She was talking about how customizing in some way, by taking the basic structure and then finding ways to customize is so important. Because there are ways that other people do that don't necessarily work for me. And I will say I've used a lot of the things she suggests, and I don't do all of them though, and I've had to try and figure out which are mine and which aren't. There's some things that clearly don't work for me that do work for other people, but
Well,
I don't
even
know.
just this week, I went back and I looked at some vlogs that they actually just popped up in my Facebook, and one was about the actually the beginning of Bright Line Eating. And she talks about she had done kind of this whole thing in a 12-step. But what I heard in this particular vlog was that when she got in her morning meditation to write the book Bright Line Eating, there were things that came later, like in the beginning part, things that were a question of her, like, well, can you do intermediate fasting? Can you have this? Like, apparently in the other program, there weren't things like beans and nuts involved, or cherries or grapes and things like that. So there were some nuances that happened with the program itself. But also, I think the big piece was that in the 12-step, it was more like if you went off plan, you lost privilege. For example, you couldn't speak anymore, or for 3 months or something like that, if you ate as much as a carrot off plan. And I'm not talking against any kind of 12-step. I'm just stating what she said in the vlog. But obviously in the community, that's a whole different thing than having a mindset of being unstoppable. Like, just keep going, one foot in front of the other. My friend Lori, the thing she said to me was, if you do this, Noreen, 2 things. One, if you fall in the ditch at some point, 1, don't beat yourself up. And 2, don't look back. You're not going that way. And I added, stop, drop, and do the next right thing. Like the next right thing, the next meal, the next, whether it means get out of the house so you're not around stuff, just do the next right thing. Just be unstoppable. And that is, it sounds like that's what you started out with in the modules, is really to keep going.
I think it's what I needed to hear was the mindset. I think that was the thing where I like exhaled. I'm like, all right, I'm in the right place. Like, she's not saying do whatever you want, or like, play with fire or anything like that. Right. She's just saying, if you do, please come again. Please keep going, push forward. You can still, it's not over. And that really, I'm super sensitive. I just am. I just am, and I always have been. And so hearing that bit of message was like, was enough encouragement for me to be like, okay, like this room I'm in is safe. It's not, it's not. I'm not going to, post in the Facebook group that I broke my lines and have people be like, well, why'd you do that?
Out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, And why did you do that in a loving way is a really great question, I think, but not, but more for the purpose of examining and like helping and learning, not from the like shaming perspective. And
well, I remember when COVID began and I was really stressed out, and I had just lost 50 pounds. I had gotten to that point, and I'm like, I am going to hold the line no matter what, I cannot go back to where I was. But I was stressed, like really stressed. And I saw in one of the Facebook groups, because now I had it even expanded, there are lots of private Facebook groups. And someone said they were going to go on maintenance. Like here they're in weight loss and they're just going to go to maintenance like right now. Like I'm stopping at 50 pounds and I'm just going to maintenance. Like I'm like, well, shoot, you could. I mean, if you said this is it, this is my weight, that's maintenance, right?
Right.
And I thought, well, you could have a plan that you're allowing yourself something, but it's part of the plan, like right now. And so I did that. I may not have been exactly what the plan's supposed to say, but 3 months later, when I got on the scale, I was still at 50 off. And I was like so relieved because I thought, if I can do this now, why don't I just lose all the weight and then I can do it then? You know, it just gave me this hope that there really was an end game to this.
It
And it
wasn't
was
what?
my game.
Okay.
It was my game. It was
Right.
my choice if I wanted to stop at 200 pounds. You know, it's just like my game. So, yeah, that's the thing. And it really did help me to know people were in my corner.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely like sniffing around for like, signs of like, body shaming mentality and like, you have to be thin or this is the ideal body and all that kind of stuff. Cause I wanted to reject something. I wanted to have something to reject, honestly. And that would have done it. That would have been like, I can't be a part of this community. But, the more I heard, the more I realized that wasn't where we were coming from. It was, some version of come as you are, and you get to decide what works for you. And these things seem to statistically work better in general, but you may be different, and you can, you're allowed to learn, in the way that you need to, what works for you. And that was, I mean, that serves me in general, and I felt like I needed that, and just the fact that that was what was spoken about, and also repeated in the community, because it's one thing to have the head say it, and then another thing to have that not sort of be the narrative in the community. And I was just really glad that was the case. I was really glad that
Yeah.
and that's what I continue to see and
Well,
experience.
I want to ask you about something else too, because
Yeah.
in the slideshow, and you even hesitated to give me these photos. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's the side, it's the side profile
Yeah.
with the shirt off, and then the photo with the guns. Okay, you're like you have really worked out. You're looking good. And what was funny in our conversation the other day, you said it was really that photo that you felt a little more vulnerable sharing than the old photo, the one with what, 50, 60, 70 pounds more? I mean,
Yeah.
can you talk about that? Like what was going on when you're saying that?
I just think it comes from, and I'm like getting emotional as we're talking about it right now, like I think it just comes from this, you're not allowed to shine, you're not allowed to you're not allowed to feel good. And it's probably for a bad reason if you are. And also, what if I do something well for a while and then I fall off and then I'm, so this, like, there's like a lot of layers to it, but I, the sense of it must be coming from a place of bad character if you feel good about something about yourself, or if there's something that's, because I don't like the societal standards about body image. I don't like how we're taught to believe we're supposed to be. I think that's harmful to everyone.
Well, and it's not even real if you're looking at what like publicists and all that are putting out. We're talking about photoshopped images half the time.
So much of it.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's really not real. And so,
People who
we can
starve
get
themselves
into
unhealthily because they have other challenges, but it manifests that way. And then the stories that they have after, and all that stuff. But I think part of the thing for me was like was saying like I actually did have a change, and I feel good about it. I feel good that it was able to be helpful and that I was able to take care of myself and learn how to do that, and to, really take care of myself with a lot of help, by the way, but
Yeah.
so it was almost like I had to hide from the after photo,
Well, right.
which,
And the thing that I did watch a vlog that came up, I tell you, these things just pop in right when I need them. And there was a vlog I watched this week called Fear of Success. And this was like way back in 2018 that Susan put this vlog out about fear of success. And what happens is what she explained is that, you know, if you're like me, you did a few diets and not just a few, like a few, and then failed at a lot of them, actually up until, or maybe were successful, but then finally, there was that day, that was it. So we kind of have our brain sitting on fear. Well, we're really going to fail. And we're going in kind of like with a fear of failure. But then when good things start to happen, there's the twist of, what if I'm really successful at this? Like, will my friends be the same? Well,
right,
I mean, will I have to make some modifications to my life? I mean, because you think about it, if you quit, like I remember when I quit smoking a long time ago, all of a sudden it wasn't so cool to hang out before bowling, like smoking. You have kind of a different, like, I'm not hanging out in certain places because I'm not doing that anymore. And so you are making a conscious change, so that the fear of success is real. And am I going to be taken to another level, like you said, to shine? And what does that mean? I mean, I skipped a grade and there was the fear of, like, I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be mocked. I didn't want to be called teacher's pet. I really didn't want to shine. I just found it a lot easier to keep my head down and, everybody would just get along. And,
right.
I think there's a lot to that, to really overcome that little fear of success. Don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of being in eighth grade, and I always liked to write, and I always had this like kind of creative part of me. And I used, it was when Microsoft Word was just coming out, and they had like crazy fonts, and I would like type it in a funky font. And I guess people didn't know how to use their computers or printers, and I wrote something that was meaningful. And I remember being mocked for that kind of stuff. So I think that's actually extremely common. I think
Mm-hmm.
fitting in is a really common experience. And that means like right in the middle, not on either side of the curve, right? It's like you don't stand out if you're right in the middle, if you're just really, so what I got from that was, and also, learned it a lot in my family. Like my I have a, my parents had their struggles, in some serious ways. My brother had his struggles in some serious ways. And so I received that, from them too, and they got it from where they got it. And,
Mm-hmm.
but it was definitely a sense of, I definitely got the message,
Yeah.
that, being good at something, was going to receive ridicule.
Yeah, it really can. And so to be able to own that, and now, can you really serve anybody unless you can at least, get yourself together? And I mean, I'm finding that
Right.
right now. I wanted to ask you something too, because you mentioned this, that as you got going with the program, there was one thing, you were happy that you didn't have to give up coffee. Are you
Yes,
still drinking coffee?
I do still drink coffee. Yes.
Okay. And black,
Yeah, I had to adjust. I
what
had
did
to
you
adjust.
do?
So when I first started, I was still doing coffee. I don't think she had clearly stated, not to use stevia at the time, and that's what I was
Mm.
using. I don't know if it's stevia or stevia. I say stevia, because that's what I'm used to saying. And I was doing that was one of the rules. Things I wasn't following was I was having cream in my coffee, and I was having coffee with stevia, and I was having a good amount, certainly in between every meal, at least. So at least twice in between meals, sometimes right after a meal also, and so yeah, and the stevia, we were talking about this the other day, that I realized was a real problem, and I didn't understand how much it was until I actually tried not to do it. And I think it took me a while to even talk about it, because it was, again, if I'm not following the rules, am I going to be
You're out
ashamed?
of
Am I going to be
here.
rejected? Right. Um, but at some point, I started talking about it, and I did a coaching call, and it was suggested that I try to take that out, because very likely it's like hijacking my brain, just like sugar it does, and just like flour does. Um, and when I didn't do it for the first like 3 or 4 days, as I was describing to you when we talked last, I could actually feel the part of my brain. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know this, by the way, but it felt, I could feel a part of my brain being like, I want stevia. Like, it felt like the reward centers of my brain were crying out for pain, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, whether that's actually what was happening, I will never know. But I definitely felt the physical withdrawal from like a part of my brain that was,
Oh,
um, and so I'm certain now that that was keeping the cravings cycle going for me, by
oh,
having that.
I don't think I mentioned this to you the other day, but one day at work, I thought, I'm just going to have some sugar-free gum. And I
Mm.
went down to the vending machine and I got some gum. Between the afternoon and on the way home, I chewed the whole pack. And I like came home and I was like a crazy woman thinking like, I need some food, like really need food. And I'm like, it couldn't have been from the gum. Next day, I did the same thing. Same thing happened. Chewed the whole pack of gum. And I realized, I think I even looked it up in the book, it's like your brain has been kind of seduced with the sugar fix, except it didn't get the goods because you didn't give them anything. You just gave them the sugar and they're expecting the hit, the glucose and all this stuff. It's the technical things. I thought, wow, I know that I experienced it and I realized I can't chew gum anymore. Like that is not going to work out very well if I keep doing that. But I wanted to ask you too, Pete, because you said a few minutes ago that it wasn't always like it wasn't always what some might call a perfect journey. Actually, I think it is a perfect journey because it's yours.
Right, right.
It's perfectly what you had to go through. What were the probably the toughest times, and how did you recover from them?
So my first boot camp, I lost a lot of weight, and I lost it fast. I have the, I guess, a gift of being a fast loser. And So it was apparent it was working right away. And so that was within 3 months, I lost probably 65 pounds,
What?
maybe 4 months.
Wow.
But between October and December, I went from around 255 to within 180 to 190, I think, on the low end. I don't exactly remember. But I was definitely within my now goal range, which is 180 to 190. Um, and and I was trying to and I was like, I want my life back. Like, I had all this energy and I wanted to do stuff, and I was starting to feel comfortable with, and I was feeling comfortable in ways I hadn't. I mean, I wasn't completely uncomfortable. I'd, done a lot of work
Mhm.
before that and done a lot of growth, thankfully, um, uh, with a lot of help. And but it
With a
was a
lot of
sense of
help from
like,
my friends and therapists.
my therapist, my friends, I did a lot of 12-step program stuff. Yeah, so in and wherever else, books and whatever I could listen to, that would, there's a lot of amazing things out there, and
Right.
um, movies, music, I could go on. But so I got, I was basically, I had a whole lot of things I wanted to do. I wanted to do more music. I wanted to do more, video and video editing, and I wanted to start to create, more of my life, because none of the work I did at that point did I enjoy or did I like doing. I felt trapped. Which has been one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gift of BLE. has been like it gave me some courage to do the kinds of things I want to do and leave the kind of work and be in the limbo that, you know, she talks about in that book, Risk Forward, that she was recommending, and she did the vlog on a few weeks ago, to like be in that space. But I was trying to do it all at once. And I also realized a few years in, Susan just did a post in Bright Lifers about ADHD, and is like, you know, I think going to do a vlog on it at some point. At some point, I realized I'm undiagnosed ADHD. I definitely cannot hold two things in my head at the same time unless I'm like really like, you know, systematic about it, which is why BLE works for me and was part of the challenge. And I definitely have the emotional dysregulation and executive functioning challenges that is very common with ADHD. I always struggled with reading comprehension when I was young, and I felt like I was dumb. That's a very common thing with ADHD. So these are things. So I was like, I'm doing it all, and I'm like, I made a schedule, and it was like filled from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with like like all the and the second something went wrong, I was like, I can't do it. I'm not able to do this. I'm not somebody who can do this. And it became this thing that I was holding on the inside that I couldn't tell anybody, because it's like, oh, I just lost a lot of weight and it's all a big joke. And I can't do it. And I started thinking about a BLE compliant food. I'm careful about I'll be careful about what I share, but a BLE compliant food that I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this next time I go to the store, and I'm gonna have it with my lunch, you know, because I missed this, and I should be able to have this. Is BLE compliant. And I saw how little it was, and I think that combination of all the stress I was putting on myself and that feeling of I can't actually do this, and oh, I have this food, I saw how little I actually got of that thing, and I just I'm trying to not hint what. Yeah, so I'm trying not to be overly careful, but anyway, so I just dug into that food, and that became my the first thing I did that kind of went off track, and then it was really hard for me to get back on. I'm a 10 plus, if there's such a thing, and in that, like, and then that later that night I went and got dinner somewhere that I hadn't planned, and then I got something else right after that dinner, and then I was just off, and I gained back all my weight. It took about 6 months. I gained it back slower than I lost it, because I was still. So you were asking about a mastermind group before, which I meet every week with. It's for anyone who doesn't know. It's something that she talks about in the book and in the boot camps, which is a group of ideally 4 people who get together, you know, in BLE and sort of talk about their process and check in. And that was this anchor point. This was this anchor point that I had the entire. I don't know if without that I would still be doing BLE.
So
but
they were with you all the way down and then all the way back?
Yeah,
Okay.
several times.
Wow.
Several times.
Wow.
I mean, you know, I got sober young, but I was a real addict. I was a real alcoholic. And so, you know, and I'm a 10. I have that brain that and also I know people who aren't 10s who still have a similar experience. So I don't want to think, I don't want to sound super unique here. But yeah.
I mean, she talks about the pathways. They're there.
Yeah.
You know, we're drawing them up by, you know, having it set. You know, we've got our program really set, but then when we deviate, you know, the brain remembers. You know, it's just a matter of time if we want to go back to that old path. And right. I think that awareness and grace and being willing to jump back in, like in the rope, it's like I've got to jump back when I can.
Yeah, it was not graceful. It was honestly, it wasn't pretty at all. I mean, I was really depressed. Like, you know, I lived with my girlfriend Sarah. She felt it. I was up and down. I was less available. I was more cold. I was in my head. I was withdrawn. You know, depression is also part of my story. So, you know, that became, and it became the thing where I was just, where I just, and I'd been on the path. So I was like feeling the polar opposite of that, and it all, and then starting to talk in the saboteur voice, which is unique to me, which sounds very familiar and is very convincing, that was all not real. BLE is actually really unhealthy. It's really, you know, that's why this doesn't work. And I want to say, it's really understandable to have skepticism about BLE. I think I was skeptical. I think it's very understandable to not just be like, I'm just jumping in all the way, no matter what, not going to ask any questions. It's been important for me to have healthy skepticism about BLE throughout the entire time, and like, and decide what's mine, what's not mine. And it still struck me as very true, as very as very hopeful, as very possible. And I had experienced freedom. But so then it became, it's good for other people, but I can't do it. It not only so it was like three or four different, selections of like why it's not going to work, why I can't get back, why I'm stuck, why I'm doomed. It either doesn't work for everybody, or it just doesn't work for me, or some version of that. So it was really hard to sort of weave my way through that, but I was connected to my mastermind group, and I did poke my head in BLE here and there, but it was kind of hard because I was seeing people like, before and after pictures and feeling like, yeah, I'm definitely on the way back up. And I was. I mean, I knew it. I knew what it felt like to have that momentum going in that direction. Not to say it couldn't have been interrupted, by the way. I think it's
Was there
possible.
one particular thing, or was it the mastermind group that really helped you through this time? And
There are
then,
certain. Sorry.
no, was that the core
A
of?
huge part of it, for sure.
Okay.
I think also I'd had the experience, even with the coffee and all that, of the most freedom I'd ever had with food, and it worked better than I ever dreamed it would. I was like, if I get down to halfway to my goal weight, I'll be ecstatic. Because that, like I said, it was really hard for me. Like once every 5 years, I maybe got down, 30, 40 pounds.
So what have you, from that experience of going through all of that, what have you learned the most that makes this sustainable now? Like, because you've obviously changed your mindset to feel like you can have this. What was the main thing that you learned?
I mean, it was, it was a learning process. It was it was definitely a long arc. There was I had to be ready to even start, and then I had to be ready to stick through, and then I had to be ready to stick through the inevitable feelings that were going to come up in one form or another, and I didn't know what they were going to be yet. I had to find some way to believe that, and try. And mostly, I did that by being inspired by other people and hearing other people talk, and hearing the reassurance of Susan, of people on coaching calls, of people, and whatever else was available there. That was all really fortifying for me to hear all that stuff.
So what I'm hearing is a lot of this was showing up. It was really showing up for the mastermind, for the group, for the calls. I mean, boot camp and whatever follows that. Are you in Bright Lifers?
Yeah.
Okay, so all of that just seems like has been so important for your journey and your continued success with, being, this is part of you now, right?
Yeah, and I just want to be clear though, it's not like I wasn't a soldier about it. Like when those times happened, I wasn't like, I'm just putting my head, like I let myself fall hard a couple times. Let myself, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to do it differently in those moments. I felt so much shame. I wasn't willing to reach out to people at times. Like I did fall pretty hard. I gained back, probably 60 pounds. I don't actually know because I don't generally weigh myself at the top. But I definitely have before and after, and then after that pictures also, where it's clear I got a lot of the weight back. Mm-hmm. But I didn't fall away entirely. I didn't fall away, and there was this, memory in my head of this has worked. This clearly worked for me, because I'd had the experience, and it wasn't just theory. And it wasn't just my weight went down. It was like it felt easy for a while, for stretches of time. In ways I hadn't before, where I wasn't thinking about food, where I wasn't like, I don't know if I can keep this up, where I was like, this is where it felt doable, in a way I hadn't known before. So I was definitely, I didn't go away entirely, but I backed away. I didn't power through it like I would have liked to have been able to, but I was plugged in enough. I was I did enough. I stayed connected enough. I didn't give up entirely. And I think, that, and I was because I plugged in early, people noticed my absence.
Right.
People noticed my pulling away, and I cared about that. I cared about the people in my life noticing. I cared about the effect that it had had. That depression, that same thing with food, had in recent years affected good friendships. Had affected, because that's one of the ways, I've talked with, there are people in have all sorts of body types in BLE. Mine was what it was. One of the things, though, for me was how it affected me psychologically. And I became a not good friend. I became not able to show up for life. But I invested enough early on to have those people who were going to notice if I was gone, and I didn't want to. I realized that it actually does affect other people if I'm hurting myself. It's not just about
Absolutely.
me anymore.
The one thing when I gained a tremendous amount of weight over a span of time, a short span of time, when we had a store. And when we closed the store, it was like it all hit me. Like here I was, 200 some pounds, all of this. And I really, for the first time, realized that you cannot hurt yourself without
Mm.
hurting the ones
Yeah.
who love you.
Yeah.
It's like you think you're just doing this to yourself, but you're hurting the ones who love you. And I'm looking at the time and we have to wrap it up, Pete. But
Mhm.
before we go,
Yeah.
I want to give you a chance to say, like, somebody's here tonight who may be struggling,
Yeah.
or maybe they need to resume where you were, those times that were so tough. What would you say to them tonight?
Um, I'm gonna say something I posted like a bunch of years ago. I just felt this inspiration one time to post it in like all the Facebook houses I was in, which is just please don't give up. I did not believe myself capable of moving through this. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I have struggles now that are different. I have different struggles. I have different mountains to climb now. Like it's not like, I've arrived and, the sun shines every day I walk outside the door. But by staying plugged in, by saying there's something here, I mean, and again, it's understandable if there's healthy skepticism, that maybe this is a cult, and that's important. Those are important questions to ask. So, but if it feels like a place for you to be, I just want to say like there are moments where I just had to trust that I could get over this craving, and then when I did, I was actually over it, and then I was going to get through this hard time, and that I was going to rest instead of work my butt off because I was already tired. That actually resting was going to give me the energy to do this another day
Mm.
and to just so I guess it's kind of simple, but like if you can just hang in there and trust that this next hump is going to pass. I know it will. I know it will. um and that's just not from my experience either. I think honestly, yeah, so that's enough.
Yeah.
I could.
Well, Pete, the time went by so fast. You've given us a lot. And I so appreciate you sharing your story tonight. The struggle and the success. It's not just like one path. It's, bumps and bruises along the way. But again, being victorious and just like saying there's a better way. There is a better way. Hang on one more day, a day at
one
a
more
time.
one more thing.
Yeah.
When I on a coaching call I did, but in reboot resume, I was said, it was told to me, you have strength. You just need to it's there. Just dig deep for it. And that was like, oh right, okay, this is going to be hard to start, but I have strength. I have gotten this far. I've been through stuff. If I can just dig deep for this to get started again, to get past a few days where I've like already, and that was true. And then I had something to hold on to. I had a few days. I had the gratitude. So I just want to say that that's an option too. There is strength there. There is strength there.
And there's strength in community. So
Yes.
reach out,
Yes.
definitely get connected. Absolutely get connected, whether in the boot camps, in the private groups, in the official group, people are there for you. I've never seen a community like it. And everybody wants your success. And who are you not to be talented and gorgeous?
Mhm.
Playing small doesn't serve the world. So,
Yeah.
as it said in that quote with Marianne Williamson, it's like, who can you serve when get this part of your life together and feel that success so you can serve others. So Pete, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you. And everybody, thank you for coming tonight. And we really went all the way through the time so quickly. So I'm going to close as I do each week. Good night, stay bright, don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, everybody. How would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
Let's do it.
Okay, 3-Question Thursday. One thing we didn't talk about was food.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite meals, or any, like, your go-to after all this time? You've been doing this a lot longer than me. Do you have
I have standards. It's funny. I do have things that I look forward to at times. Then I'm like, but I actually don't. I don't get too excited about it anymore. Which is, I enjoy it. I really enjoy
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But I love my breakfast. I think a lot of BLE people like their breakfasts. I'm not whole food plant based, so I do yogurt, and then I mix like uh, what do I mix? I'm terrible at like remembering these things on the spot. So berries, banana, oats, pumpkin seeds. I have the oats dry. I just put them in. I just put them in the yogurt, and they soak it up. And
Just like overnight oats or what?
not even. I just do it in the morning.
Okay.
I've actually done it with, which might kind of scare some people, with what are the really thick oats? The steel cut.
Steel
I've
cut?
actually gotten. It's weird the tolerances I've gotten for stuff. I can eat kale by itself. Not that I choose to all that often, but I'm capable of that now because my taste buds have changed. So, but no, I love my breakfast. I do look forward to my breakfast, and I still have coffee. So like my yogurt mix thing and coffee is magic in the morning.
Okay, this is good. That was question number 1. Question number 2, being the musician that you are, okay?
Yeah.
What do you do for going out? Do you have like a lot of opportunities to eat out? What do you do? Carry a travel scale, or what do you do? Or do you have set meals that you order, or what?
Don't let the guitars on the wall for me. I'm not on tour. Part of my bright line recovery has been like realizing the kind of things I want to do in my life and doing more of it. I wrote a song called Blocks after one of the boot camps, which is about kind of getting over your blocks and moving through. The first opening line is moving past the blocks we have, which is weird grammar, but poetic license. So a big part of what's that? Well, I'm not quite ready for that.
Okay.
But
getting past the blocks you have. Wow, this is speaking to me, because I don't know if you know, I really had the block of getting to Wonderland, and it just happened this past week. That was a block since last November.
Right.
That was crazy.
Were you there when we talked? Had you broken through when we talked last, or were you like right on the cusp?
I don't think so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like,
it's possible. These things are possible.
Okay, so
yeah, so that's a whole thing I could go into, but being able to play more. I'm actually in this really productive streak that feels also healthy and balanced right now, which is fantastic. And sort of found out ways to like kind of work with my ADHD. BLE actually has a lot of great tools for ADHD. It'll be interesting to see what she talks about in the blog.
Really?
But I guess she's going to be doing a vlog on it soon after talking to some people about it. But it's been great to be able to. So I don't have to worry too much about playing. I'll play coffee shops and that kind of stuff. I do play with my church, and I'm not like really looking to necessarily hit the Billboard top 10 or anything. But you never know. Okay. I won't say no if it happens.
3rd question. Okay. So what's the advice you would give your younger self before this Pete, who is just really not sure about this whole thing? What's the advice that you would have given him?
I'm gonna get emotional again, but there's this thing that happened to me the first time, maybe one of the first 3 times second time I ever meditated, which was it was just really simple. It's just really simple, like the thing that could be a mantra, which is "you can," um, and um, and that has applied to so many things, that I didn't really believe, but it would apply to me. But like there are things that are possible within me that I didn't imagine, and that's just what's occurring to me right now. But just like encouraging that young kid and saying it over and over again, you can do this, you can do this, dig deep, you can do this. I know you can, and I don't know what somebody else's experiences are like. I mean, but and sometimes language can be a block. Like there may be a way I say something that actually hits someone in a way that, but that all being true, everyone not having a different experience. Like I just, I just wish we were all encouraged. I just wish we were. I'll say this. I returned to school this past spring, just one class, because I'm learning not to overdo it. I'm learning from my past mistakes.
Yeah.
One class, and I was like struggling. I was having a moment, and my teacher, and I like cried afterwards. She's like, "You can do this."
Wow.
And like I don't even know, why she knew to say that to me, but it was what I needed to hear. So
You know what? There's a song in that, Pete.
Yeah.
I think tonight, write it down. Then you can play it next time. But what a great night, Pete. Thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for
out.
having me. Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And really all the best. And I hope we connect again.
Me too.
So-
Thanks for doing this. Take care, everybody. Thanks for
take
hanging
care.
in there.
Good night. Stay bright.
Bye. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
And if they do, hit them with a shoe. Okay.
Bye, Noreen.
Good night.